Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who's been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. La Marzocco is a household name in specialty coffee because they have developed a reputation of listening to their customers, serving them well through consistent innovation in quality and accuracy, so you can depend on your espresso machine, which is the heart of your business. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine with the straight-in locking portafilters, solving problems for ergonomics, the scales in the drip tray, solving problems for accuracy of your extractions, and also the auto flush feature for the group heads, which helps with cleanliness and workflow. Obviously, this is just one example of how in tune La Marzocco is, because they have lots of different kinds of espresso machines that fit your type of coffee bar and your tastes. All you need to do is go to lamarzocousa.com and take a look there. And if you want to reach out to them, they are available to help you select the right equipment for your coffee shop. All you need to do is reach out, info@lamarzocousa.com, and their awesome salespeople would be happy to help you out. Again, check them out at lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly. Espressly is making custom branded mobile apps for your coffee shop. They are fiercely dedicated to the success of specialty coffee entrepreneurs like yourself, independent operators who want to give people something more than a cup of coffee. They want to give them an experience, and that's why having a custom branded mobile app from Espressly makes all the sense in the world, especially because when you use Espressly, it's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All of the data is stored in the app itself, and it integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems. Of course, that includes Square. So if you're in the market for apps or mobile ordering, if you want to upgrade what you have or start off with the best, I definitely think you need to check out Espressly. Go sign up today over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. All right, everybody. Well, I wanted to get on here today on Shift Break and talk to you about something that I brought up in one of our live chats. I've been getting on Instagram a little bit more and talking with y'all on live streams just about, really it's a stream of consciousness kind of thing. You know, we don't really have any set agenda. That might change as we get into the world of social media a little bit more. You may have noticed the Keys to the Shop is not exactly saturating the airwaves of Instagram, etc., or YouTube. But I'm actually probably leaning into that a little bit more. So one of the things we've been talking about in this live stream format has been the idea of financial responsibility, and specifically how to create a better understanding of money and using your money well for baristas. The idea that we want to pay a living wage, I think, is an accepted one. We want to pay as much as we can, not what we can get away with, but we want to know enough about what we can afford to do in the business, be creative enough to really put value, financial value, on the people who help make this thing a reality. It's the baristas. And so right away, we're assuming we're coming to this from a position of generosity. Again, like I've said many times, pay what you can, not what you can get away with. It's a great mindset to have, and that creates the opportunity for becoming creative with what you offer people. Now, let's say that you're in that position where you are paying literally all you can pay for your baristas. You're thinking, well, what else is there? And there is something else that we can do beyond the benefits that we might be able to give people depending on the size of your coffee shop, like healthcare or benefits like for holistic health. You can give people mental health days. You can give them paid time off. And there's a lot of other things that are perks that can be added to the job to really show your appreciation, especially when money, it's not something that you can just continually raise, right? But let's talk about something that is not really talked about that much. By and large, I think the younger you are, the less likely you are to be as wise with your money. And as you grow older, if you don't learn how to be wise with your money, you end up being an older person who's not wise with their money. In fact, lots of owners of coffee shops are bad with money specifically because they started out bad with money and they never were taught about saving or delayed gratification or budgeting and things like that. And that's where I want to make a suggestion to all of us who run coffee bars. Not only are we wanting to default to generosity where and when we can and get creative and be curious about how we can do that continually for our staff, but I think there's an opportunity to provide for the staff the means to use that payment, that wage, better than they would otherwise. Lots of people just don't have the education about finance. I know I didn't. I took out, credit cards to pay for things that I wanted, and I ended up paying with the interest like for 5 or 6 years, something that it could have been paid off in a year. I didn't even need it. I just wanted it. And it would have been easy for me to say, well, I'm not making enough. I have bills, and the question is, what is it that I'm spending my money on? Am I truly, trying to live like I'm making $75K a year when I'm actually making 25 or less at that point in my life, at least? And the answer was yes. I saw it. I wanted it. It was just a click away. And then there's this idea of, oh, well, I can't afford to stay here in this job. And unfortunately, that disrupts our professional development. That disrupts our career. If we're not wise with money, then we are forced to try to change up what we do to pay for perhaps some decisions that we've made with money that are not wise. And that's not to say that everybody in a role of a barista or who is a young person is making these decisions. But by and large, I think people are in the position of being able to learn and prevent future mistakes. And just on that idea alone, I think a great thing to add to what you offer your baristas is financial education for financial intelligence, budgeting, and things like that. And I can remember when I worked in a coffee shop that paid for a course for us to take. It was a Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University. My wife and I went, we attended, we weren't on the clock, I don't believe, but it was a course that was paid for by the owner, and it was fantastic. And I learned so much. Now, you don't have to do the Financial Peace University. There's probably plenty of financial advisors and other programs available in your city that you could take advantage of. What you want to do is make sure it's a third party, somebody coming from the outside to teach your staff and yourself, by the way, about finances, because you could probably use some education on this too. Not many of us had parents or mentors and people that were examples of financial frugality and wisdom. And so we've had to kind of fight for any bits of smarts that we have around cash handling and saving and all that stuff as we go. So this is not only beneficial for them, but also for you, I imagine. You don't want it to be you teaching because, that comes off as a little bit, overstepping, I'd say. You're in the student seat. You should attend these things too. If it's a 4-week course or a 6-week course, I don't know how long FPU or Financial Peace University was. It was like, I think it was longer than a month. It was like maybe 2 months. But it took place at the same time every week. You had to work books and all of that. Now imagine if you provided that kind of information and that education voluntarily. Not everybody has to go through this, but at least they could say, hey, I'm making all these tips, I'm making all this money here, and it may not be the wealth that you want to develop over time, but it's a start. How do I use what I have wisely so that I can live within or even below my means comfortably and do well, even in a barista role? Lots of baristas, and I will say this as a former manager and also as a former barista myself, just don't know what they make per year. They don't know how to determine what their yearly make is. And so the default is always to say, well, I don't make very much. And then the owners will sometimes go through and say, well, actually, this is how much we paid you last year, just us. And then there was tips on top of that. And then it turns out you make actually a lot. And in some cases, you make more than the owners do. And that's absolutely true in many cases. So there is this question of, if we're going to provide generosity to people and provide money, as much as we can, and perks of the job, I think one of the perks needs to be how to be responsible with what we receive. And in the end, you might end up having baristas who formerly said, I can't afford to stay here. They're a really good barista, but you hate to lose them. And they say, I have to get another job that pays more. And they go through a program like this and they realize, you know what? I actually can do this. I can stay in this job. That's wonderful. I don't have to uproot my life and move. And before I was thinking that I absolutely needed to. That's not to say that this is going to solve all the problems or that this is going to, have that result for everybody. But when you provide life-changing education as a perk of the job for people whose number one problem, especially early in life, is financial management, I think you're going to be setting yourself apart in terms of your business. And it's just plain healthy, in my opinion. So I don't know. What do you think? I think it's a good idea. And I would love to see more coffee shops offering classes, free classes to their baristas. Maybe you do it where you have, you pay half and they pay half. So there's some investment on their part, so there's some skin in the game, but nothing, painful. I saw somebody when I was asking this question online in a Facebook group of coffee business owners about how somebody does this where they will have the person pay half of the course, cost. And then if they go through the whole course, they reimburse them for their investment, which I think is really cool. So you can figure this out any way you want. But the key here is to be curious. Like I said in the beginning, if we are about being generous and defaulting to doing what we can, not what we can get away with, then that curiosity is going to drive us to things like this. This is a holistic kind of life skill approach to investing in your people, and I will bet you that they really appreciate it and that the result in the end is definitely a net positive. So I hope that today's episode was helpful, gave you some ideas. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Don't forget to subscribe to Keys to the Shop. Follow us on Instagram at Keys to the Shop. Sometimes we do these live chats and we'll talk about things like this and other kind of random but helpful things for you and your business. So again, thanks everyone, and I'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break. From Keys to the Shop.